Hello, and welcome to History with Bernie and the gang. Today we'll be covering the nonviolent resistance in the US against the Vietnam War. More specifically, we'll talk about how the nonviolent movement and the political pressure affect the culture and the outcome of the Vietnam War.
Before talking about the anti-war movement, we need to talk about the war itself. But even before that, we need to understand the reasons the United States had to get involved in this conflict.
The United States is a democratic country. There's a lot of tension between them and the Soviet Union because of opposing political ideology. The communist USSR is gaining more support from countries in Asia, and as such is rivaling and questioning the United States and its ideology. Vietnam has split into two different sections: the North, which supported communism, and the South, which was against it. With that in mind, we can now talk about the war itself. The United States first got involved in Vietnam in 1949. They first started by providing military support to France. North Vietnam was a communist country, and so the US saw it as a threat to their ideology. South Vietnam, on the other hand, was against communism. Within the first year, the US had sent over 540,000 troops to fight in the Vietnam War. Over the course of the next 2 decades, many bombs were dropped and many lives were lost. 54,000 Americans had lost their lives, 1.1 million North Vietnamese soldiers died, and about 250,000 of Vietnamese soldiers had died. In January 1973, the Paris Peace Accords were signed, and the US withdrew their forces in Vietnam. Even with this, the US supported southern Vietnam in many ways. The war officially ended on April 30th of 1975, and Vietnam was reunified as a communist country.
Songs were very important when it came to the nonviolent movement against the Vietnam War. These songs managed to spread a message to many different people around the world. The song "I'm Fixing to Die Right" by Country Joe and The Fish conveys this perfectly. The song manages to protest against the war without any physical violence. Instead, it pokes fun at the way the army and the government are treating the common man. Throughout the song, sarcasm is mixed with the government's view, which is used to show how the government is not making the right choices. For example, in the chorus, it says, the band is saying that they're being forced to fight and die for some unknown reason. Later, the band tells us that the only way to have peace is to kill all that oppose. This causes many people to think that the better option would have been to try to solve this conflict in a diplomatic manner, instead of resorting to bloodshed. At the very end, the song says, this part is referring to the many Americans that were sent by the government to fight in the Vietnam War, and only had their corpses come back. This last claim is one that strengthened the anti-war movement significantly. The United States was killing many of its people and was just giving the remains to the family, like a child would give a parent.
Student and student-led protests became a very important in the resistance. College campuses were often places that held some of the largest protests. Washington University started this trend by holding massive protests against the draft. Many universities followed and hosted protests regarding all matters of the war. Many sit-ins during the war involved the Black Panther Party, blocking the drafting of houses because of the number of young African Americans drafted. Eventually, these protests helped end the draft in 1973. On September 6, 1971, Nixon addressed a speech to the United States to explain the current situation because of constant protests. With limited options, Nixon had chosen to try to convince the protests that the war was just and that he was protecting the country in his own way. Even including the fact that the need for sacrifices, not including his own, was needed all for the American dollar. After Nixon's 1971 speech, he had repeated in 1973 for his Peace with Honor speech to end all relations with Vietnam War and succumb to the nonviolent protests. According to the arts media, President Richard O. House Nixon, on January 23, 1973, he announced a ceasefire had been made with the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, and that all U.S. troops would come home within 60 days.
And just as he said, the draft ended and the soldiers returned home.
His speech was carried out as a means to end one of the bloodiest wars in history, and in it, Nixon had tried to smoothly go through the speech, to be re-elected, but failed. His words, peace with honor, had been interpreted by many different people, such as removing Nixon with honor for all future peace. With the end of the war, the culture of art, literature, music, and architecture, and so much more. American culture and the outcome of the war were affected by the nonviolent movement in many ways. A new wave of music spawned from the war and the protests. The US withdrew from the Vietnam, ultimately ending the war. This outcome proved that the American youth that they do have the power to be heard. This inspired many people to fight for what they believe in, without using physical violence. While the US was technically defeated, the common man won their battle.